Indeed, I feel great honor to Kasa Inauguration, your 3 days seminar. I think seminar, Buddhism in Ladakh. And the whole Himalayan range, Buddhism, particularly the Nalanda tradition, which we Tibetan kept over 1,000 years. I think we sincerely carry instruction of Shandarakshita. So the Himalayan range, you also share this Nalanda Buddhist tradition. So only question is just how to maintain, how to preserve. There's nothing to learn newly. However, the preservation of Buddha Dharma is study. Although Chinese people, historically, China, historically, sort of Buddhist country, and Chinese people, Buddhist people. Obviously, wherever Chinese community there, whether in America, in Europe, or Australia, like Vietnamese, wherever the Chinese community there, some Buddhist temple there. So they keep their faith, but without sufficient study. So if we raise some question, then no answer. Only we Tibetan, over 1,000 years, the way for preservation of Nalanda tradition is study. At least 20, 30 years study. And root text learn by heart. Me also, in ceremony or some government function like that, they put me on throne. But when we carried study, they treated me as a just ordinary monk student. The other day I mentioned, my tutor occasionally threatened me, showing the whip like that. So I think 6, 7 years, I start study, memorizing these root texts. Abhisamaya Alankara, as well as Madhyamika Avtara, like that. So, we learn by heart these root texts. Then each word explained by teacher, by tutor. According, again, most cases, Nalanda Master's commentary. And then, plus many Tibetan scholars as a commentary or writing. And then use extensively logic. I think we sincerely follow Buddha's advice. Oh, my follower, bhikshus, scholars should not accept my teaching out of faith, but rather thorough investigation. So therefore, like Nagarjuna, now here you mentioned it, was Nagarjuna, and his follower. They raise some of Buddha's own teachings, some sutra, they raise on, if you accept this sutra literally, it goes against reason's experiment. So we have to take liberty to reject even Buddha's own word. That's, I think, a unique thing about the Nalanda tradition. And basically, I think, a unique thing about the Buddha Dharma. No other tradition. Of course, I respect all major religious tradition. We have to respect, because these major religious tradition helping humanity if you properly follow. Like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and different Hinduism and Jainism. Of course, later about Sikhism. If you follow sincerely, all these teachings really give us inner value, compassion. So we must respect. However, among all different religious traditions, I think only Buddha mentioned, if you find some sort of contradictory teaching there, then you should take liberty to reject. That's only Sanskrit tradition. So we use extensively logic, Dignak's text, and Dharmakirti's text. And then Shantarakshita's own sort of text about logic. Oh, wonderful. Rather difficult. Recent years, I suggested to some the monastic institution, the Shantarakshita, we have some special connection. So his writing, Madhyamika, yes, you usually, quite short, so you usually study. But the logic, not pay much attention. So I appeal. When I later ask about you study that, they say, oh, extremely difficult. That subject is really difficult. So if there is difficulties there, then pay more attention. So easy thing, not much, not necessary, pay attention. Like that. So therefore, the proper way for preservation of Buddha Dharma, particularly in Nalanda tradition, if may I frankly speaking, if may I say so, frankly speaking, then in the past, Ladakhi tradition is not a proper way for preservation of Buddha Dharma. You just carry some puja and changsel. That's not sufficient. I publicly mentioned this a few occasions. Your faith, wonderful. I very much appreciate, very much impressed, but blind faith. You must study. You should know about the unique thing about Buddha Dharma in general, particularly Sanskrit tradition. Once you know these things, then you can discuss with, I think, people who very much criticize about Buddhism. We can discuss. Now, as you briefly mentioned, the last 30 years, I have I start feeling, or about 40 years ago, I developed some sort of desire to discuss with modern scientists. So then I asked some of my friends about that sort of desire or visionary. So I remember one American lady who followed Tibetan Buddhism because of marriage. His husband, one Tibetan monk who disrobed. So that you see, lady, I expressed, I want to sort of serious discussion with scientists. Then she mentioned to me, oh, be careful. Science is killer of religion. Then I reflect on Buddha's own word, or as I mentioned earlier, experiment, investigation is the key factor to understand properly Buddha's teaching. So then I felt, oh, no problem. If there is something, science, I say, prove. Right? Prove. Okay. Disprove. Then we have liberty to reject some of our century-old belief. So then I start. Discussions with modern scientists. I think the other day also I mentioned also the cosmology. I think in cosmology, the essential Buddhist concept is very helpful to explain the cosmos, sort of like Big Bang, like that. Then neurobiology, then physics, particularly quantum physics. Quantum physics, I think the modern scientific they are because of finding very limited. That even is in Raja Ramana, late Raja Ramana, once told me, on occasion in Delhi, some seminar, he told me, quantum physics, the world, or particularly in the West, is something new concept. In this country, India, Bharat, over 2,000 years, the idea or concept of quantum physics already developed there. He found that concept in Nagarjuna's text. It is very true. So, you see, we have sort of proudly, with full self-confidence, discuss with scientists. When cosmology comes, at the Mount Meru, there's only one casualty. I publicly rejected, no longer believe. So I think some old, blind, faithful practitioner, I think may find a little disturbances. 500,000 sort of, because offering mandala. Then Dalai Lama say, no Mount Meru. What happened now? So this is no problem. I think 40 years ago, some occasion I mentioned the main purpose of Buddha's appearance on this planet, this world, or India, making the Four Noble Truths, right? I'm teaching Four Noble Truths and True Truth. These things are Buddha's also the main purpose, his sort of appearances, not making map on this world. So that whether there is Mount Meru or not doesn't matter. Like that, I think we have courage, full courage. If scientists something disprove, then we say yes, okay, no problem. One occasion, Germany, some media asked me, now scientists already, because of the disprove rebirth. And I mentioned, no. The science, so far, you see, firstly, you see, they not much pay attention about consciousness and how to develop, how start. These not yet developed. Only physical thing. Now, later part of 20th century, gradually paying some attention about consciousness like that. So therefore, scientists 많이 보다 매번 니바 가가리스.
The distinction that Thomas makes is that it's different to say something, to say that we actually prove that something doesn't exist, and between this and saying that you have not yet found something.
So, concept of rebirth, as scientists so far, not except that, did not find, not sort of because of that. Never, Maris, never.
So the scientists have not yet been able to find or prove the non-existence of things that are mentioned in Buddhism.
So like that, now, I think in Buddhism, in general, one occasion, one my old friend, one German, originally from East Germany. He also spent few time in India. So since then, we become very close friend. He himself, Christian preacher. So then after many years, one occasion in Vienna, we have some sort of seminar. He there. So he want me, he want to see me separately, and we met. And then he told me, in modern time, in modern people, more scientific-minded people, it's to them very difficult to explain about existence of God. And then he told me, Buddhist way of approach, very acceptable to these young European scientific-minded people. He told me, he himself, Christian preacher. And we can see in America, in Italy, and also some European country, I have the opportunity to visit some sort of, Catholic monk or nuns, and some monasteries like that. So previously, I think quite a big number monks, nuns, now much reduced. So as that teacher told me, as teacher says, is it difficult? Is it to believe? Is everything God's hand? One occasion in Delhi, one of my very good friend, very serious believer, sincere believer, he asked me, the whole world created by God. And then among his creation, there are many mischievous people. Why God created that? Well, what is your answer for that question? What are you going to say? Yes, this is a contradiction. God, full of love, full of compassion, and all-knowing. He should know after his creation some problem. He should know. And meantime, God also have the power to create better world. Why? Why not? These, the Dharmakirti's sort of text, these contradictions, you see, they are because roughly mention these things. And also some extent, in Shantadeva's 9th chapter also you see mention these things. So therefore, you see, yes, just you believe God. And we all creation of God. Okay, So then, what kind of God? Full of love, infinite love. So one occasion I discussed with one Catholic monk. Do you, according to your sort of tradition, do you have some sort of concept of previous life? He said, no. This very life created by God. Very powerful. So that concept brings very closeness feeling with God. This very life created by God. And what kind of God? Full of love. Full of compassion. So we are children of such Father. Wonderful, really wonderful. So it's just faith to God, single-pointed faith. One occasion, many years ago, I met John Mayne. Then he no longer in America or Canada. You see, with me, you see, he performed some sort of praying to God. And then weep, tear, a lot of tears coming. So that shows such wonderful, single-pointed faith towards God. So wonderful. So all these different traditions. So then my answer, what do you guess my answer for that question? I answer, since God, we don't know what is purpose, God also created hell, heaven and hell. So there must be someone ready to go to hell. Otherwise, no meaning, creation of hell. I answer that way. So like that. So therefore, say, in modern time, the religion, no matter how wonderful, but philosophical sort of field, and where you say you carry some investigation, then you find some contradiction. So within Buddhism, Vivashik, Sotantik, Chitta Mantra, Madhyamika, and within Madhyamika, the Kasa Sotantik Sarve. The Tanyado Rangze Sheva, the Tanyado Rangze Mishivini.
So within Madhyamaka's philosophical school, there are two subdivisions. Those who accept or assert some kind of objective existence in things, and those who deny or reject any objective existence in things.
So all these, the ultimate source is Buddha's own word. But then these different philosophical views, you see, argue, comparatively study, and raise a lot of questions. Then the different school of thought, you see, when they use extensively reason the certain concept which exist in lower different school of thought, to reasoning, your sort of certain sort of the philosophical views is contradictory, not acceptable. Then the above one, and further above one, go like that. All these come from same source, Buddha, but only through reasoning make differences. So those, even Buddha's own word, but lot of contradiction there, and we consider lower school of thought. Then through that way, Madhyamika philosophy, particularly the Buddha Palita and Ayandeva, Buddha Palita, Chandrakirti, you see, their explanation. See, because of that,
The more you delve into their thought and their reasons, you'll not find any contradiction in them.
So that's the proper way the Nalanda masters, I think at least a few centuries, how they preserve Buddha Dharma. Study, debate. Through that way, you see, they preserve Buddha Dharma. We Tibetan, over 1,000 years, preserve serious study and debate. So now, as I mentioned earlier, when we start discuss with scientists, we are fully qualified to discuss and raise questions. If something is against scientific finding, then we are ready to accept, no problem. So now, after 30 years, serious discussion with scientists, now number of scientists, now this is a little bit confidential, outwardly, pure scientists. Internally, they accept the Buddhist sort of concept. Like that. So then, in 1959 and early 60s, on sort of paper produced by Chinese authority in Tibet. In Tibet, they mentioned, no need, special effort to reduce Buddhist faith. Because Buddhist faith is blind faith. More scientific knowledge increase, Buddhist faith automatically disappear. Now after 50 years, I think opposite. Including top scientists really showing interest. When they find some difficulties, they ask me what Buddhists say this. Then we have some sort of some explanation. I think young student, I think I may share one of my own experience. When the great scholar of different field of the science, as I mentioned earlier, you see, cosmology, neurobiology, physics, particularly quantum physics, then psychology. So in this field, when they make a presentation, full confidence, they made because of the presentation. When we listen carefully, some contradiction here and there. Then after then when we start discussions, some occasion, with respect, I raise sort of some question. Oh, you mentioned that, also mentioned that. Seems there are some contradiction. Then some of these scientists, they say, when they make a presentation full of confidence, but when we raise some question, then they will, I have to think, I have to thought more seriously, like that. So therefore, the logic really sharpening our mind, very essential. Now, then the psychology. I usually is telling, sometimes even publicly, the modern psychology, compare ancient Indian psychology, then modern psychology looks like a kindergarten level. The ancient Indian psychology, highly developed. So, now, today, although there is more science, more and more people really showing interest about Buddha Dharma, particularly Nalanda tradition. But one of my principles is we should not propagate one's own religion. One time in Kharsa, he should tambut Kharsa. 그래서 이슈 다음부터 가서 moment, yes, moment. They usually, you see, very much involved. They are duty member of that organization, propagate Christianity. So I have been, I think, two to three occasions. One occasion, first occasion, I mentioned the conversion is not very good. And except in those areas, no sort of proper sort of faith, not just native spirit worship like that. In such case, okay. Christianity, the conversion into Christian, good. There's the sort of certain sort of benefit. But the place, traditional, so some kind of rich tradition there, then if you try to convert or propagate, then eventually clash. There could be some clash, so not very good. When I mentioned that, I felt, what kind of response from the audience? Then audience, very much so, they like that. So that's my principle. Why I'm telling other, conversion not very good. I myself, I never try to propagate Buddha Dharma in non-Buddhist country. When I give some teaching, some talk about Buddha Dharma in Europe, in America, I always make clear, you basically Judeo-Christian background. It is better, safer to keep your own faith. Change faith is not very good, not easy, a lot of complication. I always make clear. Meanwhile, the place where traditionally Buddhist, now we must make every effort for properly preserve Buddha Dharma through study, not make a statue or chairden or temple. I always feel give money or making gomba or chairden or like that is waste of money, no use. So from my sort of money, my sort of trusted way, I never give donation making statue. One occasion in Rawarsa, they made huge Guru Rinpoche's statue. They invited me as a consecration. So I went there. Of course, I am a follower of Guru Pema Sambhava, Guru Rinpoche. Of course, I really sort of appreciate their sort of effort. But when I give teaching there, I mentioned this wonderful statue, as I am a follower of Guru Pema Jungne, Guru Pema Jungne, so I really appreciate. However, this statue may remain the next 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years. I think will never speak. Statue. We need teaching. A statue, temple, I have not much interest. Buddha's teaching about 100 volume Kanjur and more than 200 volume of Tenjur. These are real precious. The statue, nothing. And Buddha Gaya, I think Japanese or Chinese huge Buddha statue. When we visit there are a lot of dirty things from bird. So really, that's my view. As you mentioned, Buddham Shanam Gacchami. You mentioned Sangam Shanam Gacchami, Dharmam Shanam Gacchami. We usually say Buddham Shanam Gacchami first, Buddha, teacher. Then his teaching, Dharmam Shanam Gacchami. Then according to his teaching, person who develops certain inner quality, that is Sangha. So Sangam Shanam Gacchami. So you 가서 그림 가자. Sequence. You mentioned Buddha, Sangha, Dharma. So I have to ask, why? so in any way, so you see, Dharma, real protector. Buddha, teacher. He cannot protect us from suffering. Only through his teaching. His teaching. Did you love that? Because I don't know the Buddha even knows how to love that.
So the Buddha himself has said that the sages do not wash away the sins of beings, nor do they remove the suffering of beings with their hands, nor do they shift their own realization to others, but only by teaching the reality leading to liberation, they help the beings.
So therefore, teaching is the real protector. Now, just 300 volumes there, and then pray, will not protect you. Study how to transform our emotion. So Buddha give us very clear sort of the path, how to transform our emotion. Not just through puja, or through different sort of different hat with a different color. No. Buddha have no hat. Nagarjuna, no hat. And 17 Nalanda master. I think in India, I don't think these 17 Nalanda master have these sort of the hat. I think we Tibetan so fond about hat. So we also put. I think eventually we also may put hat on Buddha's hat. So therefore some Western scholars they describe yellow hat sect, red hat sect, black hat sect. And in the past, Western scholars they describe Tibetan Buddhism is Lamaism. Totally wrong. So some of these people say Tibetan Buddhism is not very authentic Buddhism. But different place, different time, different Lama come, they taught according to their own experience. So not authentic, proper Buddhism. And very much mixed with Hindu Tantriyana, Hindu Tantrism. So we Tibetan also, I think we too much sort of consider importance of some high Lama and with a different hat and like that, and carry some puja. Since late 40s, we entire Tibet, we carry a lot of puja in order to protect us, but fail. So therefore, I think old in public level, their faith is blind faith. Buddha's tradition, Buddha's teaching is not blind faith. He and his follower really opposing blind faith must study, use our intelligence. The Buddhist way, particularly Nalanda tradition, is utilize human intelligence maximum way, through that way transform our emotion. These things I also have some experience. So these experience not develop miracle way. No, through study. Over 60 years, study. And I may call meditation. Analytical meditation, analyze, use extensively logic. Then, decade by decade, destructive emotion, no proper sort of background of valid knowledge. Then, since the destructive emotion, no proper sort of reason, proper valid knowledge, valid. And then the opposite, constructive emotion, such as compassion or love, these things, there's reason, sufficient reason, like Shantadeva's book briefly mentioned these things. So then time passes, some serious competition within our emotion, within our mind, positive emotion, or destructive emotion. Then, logically, the positive emotion, proper foundation, and sufficient reason, so you can use more reasons. So, the mind is something like neutral. Destructive emotion come together, their mind become more negative. The positive emotion come, then mind become positive. So, like mind is something like honest prime minister, unbiased. And one minister, a little bit because of the cunning advice, then go a little bit that way. Then some problem happen. Then another case, another minister, very honest, very truthful, and more influence come from there. Then the prime minister take right decision. Like that, main mind is like that, neutral. So influential come from different emotion. There are some very harmful emotion, very very constructive emotion. Go like that. That's the proper way of training, not just recite mantra, 100,000, not much. So therefore, study is very, very important. The proper way for preservation is study. So therefore, I always give encouragement those monastery or nunnery and also school children pay more attention for study. That's the proper way for preservation of Buddha Dharma. Just to carry some puja, not much. We experienced nothing happened through puja. Transform our mind. Now, as you mentioned, as you recently experienced, now Tibetan, as a sincere student of Shanta Rakshita, of Nalendra Master, I think through generations we kept Shanta Rakshita's spirit and then later Kamalashila's spirit. So, Tibetan Buddhism. Now today, I think out of nearly 1 billion Buddhists, I think Tibetan Buddhists handful, but the best knowledge about the Nalanda tradition, only we kept. No other country. About 400 millions of Chinese Buddhists, see, they also know the name of Nagarjuna, Lunsu Pusa, they say, Nagarjuna. And Nagarjuna's text, even I think translated into Chinese language before translation, Tibetan translation. But they just, you see, kept these texts, never pay study. One occasion in Japan, a few years ago, say one leader of Buddhist organization in Japan, one wonderful abbot, wonderful. So eventually we become very close friend. Then he told me, we Japanese always recite the Heart Sutra. You recite it in Sanskrit. You see, but without knowing the meaning. So he sort of expressed to me, your explanation about meaning of Heart Sutra is very, very helpful. He told me like that. So many cases, Tibetan monks also, you see, recite some very important sort of sutra or tantra without knowing the meaning. What use? So please pay more attention for study. And lay people also now should study. Whether you believe Buddhism or not, study is very important. And particularly in the Rinne Choanga, logic, language, Sanskrit, then medicine, then Nangdurji Pustakara. That is the sort of training of our mind. 그치 갈라서. 갈라서. Sorry. I think Kundalamaramasi once told me, training our mind is transforming our mind, also a kind of sorriba, he mentioned. In any way, out of these 5 sort of major fields of knowledge, logic, and then psychology. These things, I think, should consider academic subject, not religious subject. So unfortunately now, explanation about these things only available in Buddhist text. So it shows Buddhist text, but itself should separate as an academic subject. So about 15 years, since 15 years, I suggested about 300 volumes, Kanjur and Tenjur, altogether 300 volumes. The content, judging content, we can divide three category. One category, science of mind. And some extent, science of particle, or these things. And then, second, philosophy, including now logic. So out of 300 volumes, at least they are, now we compiled according the subject, science, philosophy, and religion. So now, I think few books, 3 books, 3 volumes, we already produce out of 300 volumes, according the different content, because of different sort of subject matter. So the rest of the books are Buddhist text, so for Buddhist. But these three sort of books we already compiled. You see that education. For academic value, academic subject. So now, as you mentioned earlier, one of my commitment is trying to revival of ancient Indian knowledge in modern India. So, you see, therefore, so India, only India can combine modern education, modern science, that related with material value, material world, and then ancient Indian knowledge about psychology, about mind. You see, the proper way to change our emotion, not through prayer, not through recitation, but through analyze extensively, logical way. So these once to see introduced in this country, then these bring us inner strength, inner peace, inner value. So out of about 200 nations, I think only this nation have the potential or ability to combination ancient Indian knowledge, which brings inner peace, and the really 1,000-year-old your concept of ahimsa, karuna, irrespective of whether believer or non-believer, believe this religion, that is secondary matter. The important is that we are human beings. We need human value. Now, a few years ago, one occasion, meeting with scientists, some scientists say basic human nature is more compassionate. They have sort of sufficient reasons to explain. Really convincing. So that's really hopeful sign. That's our hope. If basic human nature is anger, then no hope. But basic human nature is more compassionate. So now, the problem, the drawback is existing education, so-called modern education system, not pay much attention about our inner value. The very purpose of modern education is oriented about material value. So, now I think that obviously most of these troublemakers on this planet, I think as far as modern education is concerned, they're very good educated people, but become very troublemaker. So lack of moral principle, ultimately lack of sense of compassion, sense of concern of well-being of others. So one of my now latest commitment is try to a revival of ancient Indian knowledge, not Buddhism. Just, you see, the psychology and Brahman, the logics, these, I think very, very useful. Very, very useful. Although I think when we study, when we carry research, analytical meditation, implementing, but without knowing the whole system of our mind. So psychology, ancient Indian psychology, highly sort of precise the explanation about system of whole mind or emotion. These, not knowing that, and then use the analytical meditation or analyze. Analysis, oh, wonderful. So if India revival your own tradition, combine modern education and ancient Indian knowledge, then I think immediately about 400 million of Buddhists in China, they certainly immense impact in their mind. So combine India, about 1.1 billion. China, about 1.34 billions. Combine these two. I think more than about a quarter of humanity. Very important. Then Buddhism, as far as for India, Buddhism is one of your religion. China, historically, Buddhist country. Once China, you see, start practice of combination modern education and ancient, the Indian knowledge which governed China and Japan, Vietnam, Korea, and Burma, Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, Sri Lanka, all these Buddhist countries. Actually, I think follow of one of Indian religion. So in ancient time, I think India, as far as Dharma is concerned, you become greatest invader. The Buddha Dharma, you see, carry the flag of Buddha Dharma, and then when Sri Lanka and Thailand, Burma, Cambodia, Laos, China, Mongolia, Tibet, some part of Russian Federation, then Korea, Japan, Vietnam, like that. I think Dharma is truly liberator. Liberation or emotion. So I think you should call the Chinese, the communist sort of People's Army, they usually call Liberation Army. Sometimes bring more sort of suppression. Not the liberated, but tight. Dharma, truly liberator. Also, destructive emotion, you see, because of that. That liberate. So that's why sort. And then, of course, firstly, these Buddhist country, particularly follow of Nalanda tradition. You see, once getting more deeper experience through study, combined with scientific finding, through that way, more transformation come. Then, I think these countries really can make significant contribution of well-being of humanity, world peace, and in order to create compassionate 21st century, I feel. So, India, China, and these Buddhist countries, and then certainly we can make certain contribution for other tradition, single sort of faith towards God, wonderful. But meantime, the main teaching of God is love, compassion, forgiveness, tolerance. So, in this respect, from Buddhist source, we can serve them about our emotion, how to transform our emotion. So that's, I feel, one great service to God, like that. So therefore, I think these things, you see, these great teacher, of course, wonderful teacher. I think from Buddhist viewpoint, like Jesus Christ, Muhammad, these can be different form of manifestation of Buddha or some Bodhisattvas. Clearly we can say. Just ordinary, very, very ordinary person cannot sort of, because of influence, 1,000 years millions of people, difficult. So therefore, we can, to some extent, we can support, we can make a contribution. As some of my Christian friend, they really very, very eager to learn from sort of Buddhist tradition, practice of forgiveness, practice of tolerance, and mainly compassion, these things. Then philosophy, different, like that. So they also have, I think, sufficient sort of concept, the God, Creator, infinite love, wonderful, as I mentioned before. So like that, I think as far as serving society is concerned, I think we Buddhist monks and nuns should learn from Christian monks and nuns. They really, in India, in South India, in different place, very poor village, some missionary nuns, they really dedicated, you see, for health and also for education. A Buddhist monk, particularly a Tibetan Buddhist monk, they remain in the monastery and a nice tea like that. So we must learn from Christian Christian brothers, sisters, from their tradition in order to serve society, in order to serve the people. And they can share some of our experience as to how to develop more further about compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, like that. I think that we can start from Ladakh. There are some Muslims there, many Ladakhi Muslims. I have a very close friend. So the Nubra, the other day, you see, there are some local Muslim. They mentioned in Yarchu, the Kasata Dim Kasare.
During the summer debate contest.
Now, in the future, they also want to participate. They mentioned. And Tortuk, I haven't, now, because of the circumstances, it's difficult to visit there, although I planned to visit there. So then some of their leaders come to see me, and they asked me, they want to introduce Tibetan sort of study, Tibetan writing, and they want one Tibetan teacher, or one Tibetan who can teach Tibetan script or Tibetan writing. So I noticed, you see, in the Srinagar, some Tibetan Muslim there, you see, their children speak Tibetan very well. And then I asked them, how to preserve? You have no separate school for study Tibetan. Then they say, their own family, they teach their children Tibetan. Just a few weeks ago, I met one Muslim from Srinagar, one Tibetan Muslim, who speak Tibetan, particularly Lhasain dialect. You see, he expressed to me, Rinpoche, 당한주 그들이 Lhasa petu 그래, 사실 지라다.
So in his honorific Tibetan, he asked, when can we return to Tibet and Lhasa?
Like that. So these, I think they're Muslim, but at the same time, you see, they're really showing interest about the Tibetan language, and then not converting them to Buddhist. No, should keep their own faith. But psychology, logic, these, I think, we can share with them. So then, rest of India, you see, also we can do something. from time to time, some seminar. Now, I think within this year, I think we're going to have some sort of teachers' training about secular ethics. So now, August, this month, the later part, I go to third week, I go to Bombay and serious discussion about drafting curriculum about secular ethics. So within this year, we can start some sort of program for serious sort of study for teachers training. And I want some Muslim teacher, I think, should participate. See, nothing to do with Buddhism, but a certain sort of concept, certain information come from Buddhist text. There's something common for humanity. And similarly, some Christians also can participate. And then, of course, Hindu, no problem, like that. So hardliner Hindu, Atma, Atma, Atma. Then there is some difficulties. One time in Bangalore, you see, one sadhu, wonderful, who really helping immensely to students, mainly meal, providing meal. So we have some discussions. So practice of Shila. Usually I discover Hindus, Buddhists, almost like twin brothers, like that. So the practice of Shila, practice of Shamatha, practice of Vipassana, same. So this is our common practice. Now different thing is Atma and Anatma. Then I told him, you believe Atma, useful, that concept. Me, Anatma, that's our private business, no problem. At one occasion in Holland, when I talk and the theistic religion, non-theistic religion, then at my talk, some question answer. One lady is asked me, she believes God, creator, very useful. Then I told her, oh, wonderful, you believe that. Because you see, you get that concept is immense beneficial. So that's very good. You should carry on like that. So I mentioned. So I think we should make distinction. First level, we are human being. 7 billion human being, same. Same way born, same way die. And the same way, every time some complain. The other day, I met someone who sort of expressed some sort of difficulties in their sort of family or something. Then I told them, 7 billion human beings here, except very, very, very young children. Otherwise, 7 billion human beings, everyone have something to complain. So that's our nature. But you see, so we need certain sort of secular ethics, truthful, honest, compassionate, then that immense benefit to individual. Remain truthful, compassionate, with sense of concern of others' well-being. Then your life can carry transparently. That brings trust. Trust brings friendship. We are social animal. We need friendship. So the world peace starts from individual, peaceful family, peaceful community. In that respect, I think you Ladakhi brothers, sisters, I think can make some certain significant contribution for world peace. Firstly, you yourself create peaceful, compassionate community. no matter what religious belief. Then your spirit, you see, can share, firstly, Jammu Kashmir and area, like that, and then neighboring states, like that. And occasionally, I think India, I think, should take more active role regarding religious harmony. In this country, I think last 2,000 years, beside homegrown religion, that is Sankhya philosophy and some other ancient Hindu tradition, and Jainism and Buddhism, then later Sikhism, these are homegrown religions. Then from outside, Zoroastrian, Parsi community in Bombay, Zoroastrian, then Judaism, then Christian, then Islam. These from outside. But now, almost nearly 2,000 years, all major world religious traditions live together here. That's, I think, really wonderful sort of example. Now this, you should not carry just your tradition. Should be active. And then show to other world, particularly where conflict in the name of religion there, I think India, particularly Indian Muslim, should take more active role. There is really a possibility we live together. And now in Syria, in Iraq, in this area, even the same follower of Quran fighting in the name of Shia, Sunni, and Egypt, Christian and Muslim, so on. I think India have potential. Now should remain indifferent, should take some active role. How to make contribution? Bring closer. Western nations, some Western nations, is in order to tackle these hardliner Muslim, they spend more money for weapon. That's totally wrong. That's not the right approach. Right approach is, they are also human beings. And reach out, reach out. That's the only way. Spend more money for weapon, source of more trouble. Like that. So that we, each individual, we also have moral responsibility to bring religious harmony, and through that way, peaceful world, compassionate world. Okay, now particularly the Ladakhis, we have very close friendship. So I have the three commitments. Number one commitment is promotion of compassion on this planet. So eventually, this century should be century of compassion, and through that way, century of peace. So that's my number one. Irrespective of whether believer or non-believer, I believe in this religion or that religion, doesn't matter. We are same human being. So that's my number one commitment. Number two commitment, religious harmony. So you have a very good opportunity already, very good sort of tradition. So please think more promotion of religious harmony. Then third, I'm Tibetan and 6 million Tibetan. Believe me, trust me. So a political matter, I already retired since 2011, completely retired. And not only myself retired, but also, you see, almost 4th century old tradition. Dalai Lama institution automatically become head of both temporal and spirituality. Now that, now formally, proudly, voluntarily, happily cease. So future Dalai Lama institution even remain, no longer any political sort of responsibility, like that. So because now here, I feel some of these Lama institution is some sort of influence of feudal system. That outdated, now must end. So with some feudal sort of influence, then eventually Lama institution creates Lama politics. So that's very bad. You see, Lama politics, Lama individual disgrace doesn't matter. But very bad impression about monastery or monk, very bad. So we must, they pay more attention. Such things, you should not say, oh, this is my guru. Whatever guru say, I must follow. That's totally wrong. Buddha himself, mentioned, my teaching, you must examine. Similarly, one particular Lama says something, you examine whether this is go well according to Buddha's teaching or according to the circumstances in the society, then you must follow. If Lama says something, if you investigate, that's not proper, then you should not follow the Lama's teaching. Even Dalai Lama's teaching, if you find some contradiction, should not follow. It's my teaching. Like that. So, that's as far as Gilubu is concerned. Lama Tsongkhapa clearly mentioned Che Mayibaman Dopar Chaos. Gewe Timber Chola, Migiwe Chola, Mitimber Cholos.
So if the Lama teaches you or mentions something which is against the Dharma, it should be avoided, right?
Dogus, opposed.
And if the Lama's teaching is in accord with the Dharma, that should be followed. If it's in discord with the Dharma, it should not be followed.
Recently, many years ago, in Dharamsala, Western Teachers Conference. At that conference, some Western Buddhist teacher, they mentioned some Zen masters and some Tibetan Buddhist master. They create some very bad impression among people. Then I told them, these people not follow Buddha's advice, Buddha's teaching. We cannot do. So we cannot do. Only thing is, make public. Through newspaper, through radio, make public. Then these Lama, although they don't care about Buddha's teaching, but they may care their faith. I told them at that conference, that almost 15 years ago. Now recently, Sojia Rinpoche, my very good friend, but he disgraced. So some of his own sort of student now publicly made public using their criticism, like that. And recently in Kasachuti, Nubra, some Taiwanese group came to see me and they complained. One of their own teacher. So then when they complain or criticize about their teacher, and then some their friends show Lamrim, Jinze Leborton, Jisung Kashin Truba, Shek Dusa, Lata.
So when they criticize this teacher, the Chinese people, she comes with this point from the Mandarin text, saying that you should actually have pure vision of whatever the teacher does and also follow whatever the teacher says.
Thank you. Tushi. When I later asked about this study there, they say, extremely difficult. That subject is really difficult. So if there is difficulties there, then pay more attention. Easy thing, not much, not necessary, pay attention. Like that. So therefore, the proper way for preservation of Buddha Dharma, particularly Nalanda tradition, if may I frankly speaking, if may I say so, frankly speaking, then in the past, Ladakhi tradition is not a proper way for preservation of Buddha Dharma. You just carry some puja and changsel. That's not sufficient. I publicly mentioned this a few occasions. Your faith, wonderful. I very much appreciate, very much impressed, but blind faith. You must study. You should know about the unique thing about Buddha Dharma in general, particularly Sanskrit tradition. Once you know these things, then you can discuss with, I think, people who very much criticize about Buddhism. We can discuss. Now, as you briefly mentioned, the last 30 years, I have I start feeling, or about 40 years ago, I developed some sort of desire to discuss with modern scientists. Major religious tradition helping humanity if you properly follow, like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and different Hinduism and Jainism. Of course, later part, Sikhism. If you follow sincerely all these teachings, really give us inner value, compassion. So we must respect. However, among all different religious traditions, I think only Buddha mentioned if you find some sort of contradictory teaching there, then you should take liberty to reject. That's only Sanskrit tradition. So we use extensively logic, Dignak's text, and Dharmakirti's text. And then Shantarakshita's own sort of text about logic. Oh, wonderful. Rather difficult. Recent years, I suggested to some monastic institution, the Shantarakshita, we have some special connection. So his writing, Madhyamika, yes, you usually, quite short, so you usually study. But the logic, not pay much attention. So I appeal. Indeed, I feel great honor to inaugurate your 3 days seminar. I think seminar, Buddhism in Ladakh. And the whole Himalayan range, Buddhism, particularly the Nalanda tradition, which we Tibetan kept over 1,000 years. I think we sincerely carry instruction of Shantarakshita. So the Himalayan range, you also share this Nalanda Buddhist tradition. So only question is just how to maintain, how to preserve. there's nothing to learn newly. However, the preservation of Buddha Dharma is study. Although Chinese people, historically, China, historically, sort of Buddhist country, and Chinese people, Buddhist people. Obviously, wherever Chinese community there, whether in America, in Europe, or Australia, like Vietnamese, wherever the Chinese community there, some Buddhist temple there. So they keep their faith, but without sufficient study. So if we raise some question, then no answer. Only we Tibetan, over 1,000 years, the way for preservation of knowledge tradition is study. At least 20, 30 years study. And root text learn by heart. Me also, in ceremony or some government function like that, they put me on throne. But when we came to study, they treated me as a just ordinary monk student. The other day I mentioned, my tutor occasionally threatened me, showing the whip like that. So I think 6, 7 years, I start study, memorizing these root texts, Abhisamaya Alankara, as well as Madhyamika, Avtara, like that. So, we learn by heart these root texts. Then each word explained by teacher, by tutor. According, again, most cases, Nalendra Master's commentary. And then, plus many Tibetan scholars as a commentary or writing. And then use extensively logic. I think we sincerely follow Buddha's advice. Oh, my follower, bhikshus, scholars should not accept my teaching out of faith, but rather thorough investigation. So therefore, like Nagarjuna, now here you mentioned it, as Aya, Nagarjuna, and his follower. They raise some of Buddha's own teachings, some sutra, they raise on, if you accept this sutra literally, it goes against reason's experiment. So we have to take liberty to reject even Buddha's own word. That's, I think, a unique thing about the Nalendra tradition. And basically, I think, a unique thing about the Buddha Dharma. No other tradition. Of course, I respect all major world tradition. We have to respect, because these